you know about or were alive when President Reagan got shot? Hmm? How many of you were alive and remember that? The attempted assassination of President Ronald Reagan. Well, Reagan is doing a testing of the shooting of President Ronald Reagan. So, let's see what he's going to do with this, shall we?
Ferb, I know what we're going to do today. U.S. President Ronald Reagan is widely regarded as one of the most influential presidents in the last century. The reason that your dad still has that Reagan Bush shirt in the back of his closet. Spoiler alert, it wasn't for the Bush part. But on March 30th of 1981, John Hinckley lay in wait in front of the Hilton, D.C. hotel with the intent of ending the life of Ronald Reagan. The weapon in question, a very bizarre little .22 revolver. Today, we are going to be recreating this historic assassination attempt, as well as getting into some of the more interesting details and the questionable motivation behind it. Of course, incorporating some trademark dark humor.
Of course. Yeah. Okay, so what makes it so unique, I wonder? Nothing is jumping out at me off the onset. By the way, quick fun fact for those of you that may or may not know about this. When President Reagan was brought to the hospital because of his injury, because the would-be assassin did actually strike Reagan with the bullet, when Reagan was brought to the hospital and was brought into the operating room, he looked up at the surgeon before he got put under. He said, I sure hope you're a Republican. And the surgeon replied to him, Mr. President, today we're all Republicans, before operating on the president. Little, somewhat, fact.
Now, the weapon used in this particular assassination attempt was the German-made RG-14S. This is a .22 caliber 6-shot revolver. Also an incredibly questionable weapon for an attempted assassination, but hey, for details we will get into later, the guy did not seem to be exactly in a proper state of mind. We're going to shoot this real quick just to demonstrate it, but I cannot impart to you how much this feels like a toy. Not particularly well constructed, feels just very cast and shitty. Apparently was bought for $29 back in the day. Of course, that was in 1981 dollars because the U.S. continues to devalue our currency at an alarming rate.
Even back then, he said, what year was that?
That was in 1981 dollars.
Even in 1981, buying a gun for $21 was cheap. Even in 1981. Like, yeah, 1981 was over 30 years ago. Like, actually, sorry, over 40 years ago. But even back then, $21 to buy a handgun was disgustingly cheap. Your average, I don't know for sure, but I want to say your average firearm back in 1981 was probably $200 to $300. I want to say, I believe that may have been, as an average, what you would be paying for a gun store. Roughly, I'd say $200 to $300. The fact that this cost $21, holy shit, that is disgustingly cheap.
As the U.S. continues to devalue our currency at an alarming rate. Let's shoot it. So to load this particular revolver, normally on this side, you would have some sort of lever that would then allow the cylinder to swing outward. Here on this one, you just pull this plunger out and that just entirely comes free. Stick that in your fucking pocket, I guess. And then this allows the cylinder to swing outward where you can then load the gun. Got our .22 caliber rounds here. Of course, you can swing that back. Take the rod, insert it back into the gun.
Honestly, you know, Brandon's kind of goofing on it, but it's like, that's how a lot of the guns, a lot of the revolvers operated way back then, you know, 40, 50 years ago. That's literally how they worked. You literally removed the like seating rod to allow the cylinder to pop free. I want to say, I could be wrong about this. I think the concept of that rod, let me back it up a little bit. The rod here, this rod, I think they you know, Revolver started mainstreaming where the rod would not fully come out of the housing and would just pull forward slightly, which would allow the cylinder to swing free. And the guide rod basically was like on a spring. You didn't fully withdraw it. It was on a spring, so you pull it a little bit, pop the cylinder, load up, pull it, and then you could just snap the cylinder back in because the guide rod had sort of like a slanted cut on its interior base, so the cylinder could just snap back into place. But in 81, a lot of them had this. A lot of them, this is how revolvers were reloaded. I want to say it was probably the late 80s when the spring-loaded guide rod became more standardized on revolvers. Now, again, I could be very wrong on these dates. I am guessing based on you know, what I've read and older models that I've, you know, researched a little bit. I think it's around like 85 or 87 when the spring-loaded guide rod became more standardized. And no rod yet. I am not just looking for an excuse to keep saying rod over and over again. Because if I was, I would have just simply said, chat, show me your big, thick rod. See the difference? Now show me your rod, chat.
Insert it back into the gun, and you are ready to impress Jodie Foster. We're going to demonstrate it on the steel plate real quick.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the reason. He's going to get into that. He's going to get it. Brayden's going to get into it, but yeah. The assassin literally tried to kill Ronald Reagan to impress Jodie Foster. That's not a joke. That was his reason. But Brandon will probably get into that a little bit more.
Despite having owned this for some time in anticipation of this video, I've actually never fired this gun.
He did not
so
bender
we're about
walking.
to see just how accurate
I
this
think it may be
can
double action.
I'm the
I
taxi
think it may be
driver,
double
baby.
single.
3, 2, 1.
Maybe it is single. He keeps pulling the hammer back, so maybe it is single.
3 out of 4, not too bad. Now, another thing that I have just now put together that makes a little bit of sense is that this rod can now be used, since there's, you know, no ejector of any kind, getting these rounds out. This rod, I'm assuming, is to be used to help punch out the empty casings.
Okay.
Which actually, now that I look at it, makes a great deal of sense. I love it when I figure shit out in real time while we're on camera.
All right, guys, real quick, I'm interrupting myself because I have an announcement that I think is pretty cool. My buddy Nick, the fat electrician, is no longer special because yours truly has officially been added as a commander in World of Warships.
Hang in there, guys.
And I got him.
Suck on it, nerd.
I
That's
got
right,
him.
From now until December 31st, World of Warships is teaming up with me, putting me in the game with custom voice lines and special bonuses.
Enemy cruiser destroyed.
And I will say they did let me have a little bit of fun with the voice lines. I had a good time. We'll see how much of that they kept, or how much their legal department allowed them to keep. But new players can use the invite code AKAdmiral. And that gives you a badass starter pack with me as your commander. And this is a nice touch. You also get the USS Texas with Lone Star Permaflage. AK Guy
Chat, write this down. I'm gonna need to use this.
Flag, 250 doubloons, 7 days of Premier Access, 1.5 million credits, and 1 port slot after 11 battles. You guys know me. All about that port slot. Now, if you're an existing player and you want to add me as a commander, don't worry, you can always just click the link down in the description and start the mission. Honestly, this was just kind of a cool collaboration, so I hope you guys enjoy it as well. I can't wait to go download it and play with myself. Anyhow, check it out using the links.
Wait, But Brandon, what if I want to play with you? Yeah, I want to play with Brandon. I don't want him to play with himself. Let me play with you. We can play all sorts of games.
In the description and in the pinned comment. Appreciate World of Warships. And of course, as always, if you ever wanted to get your start in gunsmithing and weapons technology, I recommend you check out sdi.edu. Links for that are again down in the description and the pinned comment. We appreciate them. Back to Reagan.
Yeah, 22 LR, well, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't want to get fucking shot by it. Not exactly the premier weapon for human-sized targets. Like I said, John Hinckley Jr. probably not of the best state of mind.
Phrasing, Brandon, phrasing.
Yeah, his phrasing was very good, wasn't it, JRC?
Mind at the time. So let's talk a little bit about the motive. You may have remembered in the beginning of this video that I was reading the book The Catcher in the Rye, one of the most miserable pieces of literature ever fucking written. You might be thinking, Brandon, The Catcher in the Rye was actually what John Lennon's assassin was reading that inspired him to, well,
Kill John Lennon.
and you'd be right, but it also inspired John Hinckley as well, apparently. This is apparently the original piece of media that inspired fucking miserable incels. Speaking of incels, that was the other part of it that's a little bit better known. John Hinckley apparently was trying to shoot the President of the United States, at the time, Ronald Reagan, because he was obsessed with the movie Taxi Driver and wanted to impress Jodie Foster, the actress. I'm confident that he did get the attention of Jodie Foster. I'm also confident that it was not positive attention. Also, something that doesn't get brought up ever is the fact that Jodie Foster at the time was
15?
barely 18 when this assassination attempt took place. And in the movie Taxi Driver, she was 12 years old, playing a 12-year-old child prostitute. So,
God.
there's that. And if you also had to read The Catcher in the Rye in high school and thought it fucking sucked, go ahead and subscribe. Plus, we do some pretty cool stuff here.
Yeah, it's real. Well. Hey. Yeah.
Hopefully you guys enjoy that too. Much more than Catcher in the fucking Rye. Interesting note, not only is John Hinckley still alive, but as of a couple of years ago, he's actually out of prison. I think making him the only living human who's ever shot an American president.
Twitch chat, you need to disappear for a second. This is him now. He's still alive. How this man did not get life in prison is beyond me. This man tried to literally assassinate the President of the United States. How is he still alive and not in prison? Yeah, Vegeta, I thought she was older than 12 too. I didn't think she was maybe she was playing a 12-year-old in Taxi Driver, but I thought she was a bit older than 12. But I don't know. It's dear fucking God. Our criminal justice system, ladies and gentlemen. You can attempt to assassinate a president and still not, and get out of jail. Fucking hell. Okay, well, Darth, Andrea, even if he's kept in a mental hospital for the duration of his sentence and declared insane, why the fuck is he out if he was declared insane? If he is mentally insane, why is he out amongst the public? Do you see where I'm having an issue with this?
Prison. I think making him the only living human who's ever shot an American president and not only survived, but is now walking free. Mental illness was of course cited in the case, which, I mean, fair enough. And if you're wondering what he's up to these days, he's actually got a pretty quiet life of making country music on YouTube.
She's my one and only, there ain't no other way.
Which,
Dear God, that's terrifying.
okay, it's a weird world, man. Although he never
Look at this dead expression. Look at this. Oh, God, that's terrifying. Huh!
did get that date with Jodie Foster. It's a weird world, man. Although he never did get that date with Jodie Foster. I mean, at least not yet. I guess there's still time. Anyhow, Mr. Gorbachev, set up that dummy. Sorry about this, Mr. President. Now, another thing that's interesting and worth noting about this assassination attempt is that Reagan was not the only one that was hit. In fact, Hinckley fired all 6 rounds from this little revolver and hit a total of 4 people. Ronald Reagan, Tom DeLahaney, Tim McCarthy, and James Brady. The most grievously wounded amongst them probably being James Brady, who was, of course, shot in the head. His wounds were so severe that media initially reported that he had been killed, to which his surgeon replied, "No one has informed me and the patient." Luckily, James Brady did survive, although 33 years later, when he died, it was deemed a homicide, potentially due to the connection with the gunshot wound he had suffered 33 years prior.
Oh, wow.
Now, the name Brady hasn't...
Wait! Hold the fuck up! Keep the fuck up! Listen to that again! I want you to listen to that again!
Potentially due to the connection with the gun. Later, to me and the patient. Luckily, James Brady did survive, although 33 years later, when he died, it was deemed a homicide. Potentially.
If his death 33 years later was deemed a homicide because it resulted from the gunshot wound, why the fuck is Hinckley out of jail? Because we have now have attempted murder of the president and the murder of another individual as a result of his actions. Why the fuck is he walking free? If it's deemed a homicide, where's the fucking charges? Why is he not in prison? This makes no goddamn sense to me. Absolutely not. Steady, I do not give a flying fuck if it's tied to the mental illness. If it's deemed a homicide, he gets charged with a homicide. That's the way this shit works.
Due to the connection with the gunshot wound he had suffered 33 years prior. Now, if the name Brady hasn't sounded familiar yet, let me fill in the pieces. Brady's wife would go on to lead the Brady Group, which is a gun violence prevention organization.
God, the Brady Bill?
That would essentially spearhead several anti-gun bills over the years. In fact, the Brady Bill, as it's referred to, named after, of course, James Brady, is the reason why we have federal mandated...
Seb, hold up. That's not how double jeopardy works. Double jeopardy works, so basically the way double jeopardy would work in this case is if he was tried and found not guilty of shooting the president, and then they tried to charge him again, there's where double jeopardy comes into play. You cannot be, or sorry. Let me rephrase. I misspoke. It's if he got charged again for shooting President Reagan. So he got charged, was tried, was convicted, was found guilty and convicted of shooting Reagan, and then several years later, they tried to charge him for it again. That's double jeopardy. So if you are tried and convicted of something, that you cannot be charged for that same thing again. This was a different individual. He was not charged with murder. Even if they charged him for attempted murder or reckless endangerment for Brady, and then Brady died and they ruled it as a homicide, then they should be able to charge him for the homicide because his initial charge was not for homicide. It would have been for reckless endangerment or whatever they charge him. It wouldn't have been for homicide. So double jeopardy wouldn't necessarily apply because it's not the same charge. Basically, you cannot be charged for the same crime, for the same incident twice. That's how double jeopardy would play. So you get charged for, you get charged, then convicted for murder, and then 10 years down the line, they can't charge, something happens where it turns out, that the person's actually alive. And, and they try and charge him for it again, they can't do it. Despite this classification, federal prosecutors, the District of Columbia declined to pursue murder charges against Hinckley. The primary legal barrier was the year-and-a-day rule in effect under DC law, which barred homicide
How
prosecutions.
does he have more subs on YouTube than an anime cat girl VTuber?
Stop. which barred homicide prosecutions if the victim died more than 1 year and 1 day after the injury. Okay. That's why. All right, so the legalese. Shit. Okay.
Referred to, named after, of course, James Brady, is the reason why we have federal mandated background checks in this country and have since the early 90s. Passed in 1993 and is the reason why, since then, every single firearm manufacturer, gun store, gun show, pawn shop, any place you can buy a firearm like that in this country, it is federally mandated that there is a background check done through the NICS system. The next time a gun grabber comes to you and says, we need background checks, remind them that we've had them federally mandated in this country for over 30 fucking years. And that's technically in no small part due to this guy.
You see desolation everywhere.
Oh, great,
So
another reason to hate him.
We can tell that Reagan was actually shot in the left lung. So he was hit in a rib, which then bounced down into the bottom of his left lung, puncturing his lung. A couple famous lines that came out of that as well, because of course Reagan being the great communicator and very, very well known for his witticisms. One of them being when his wife, Nancy, came to his side, of course after being shot. He said, Nancy, I forgot to duck. The other one he was known for, which was while he was being prepped for surgery to remove the bullet, right before being put under for the surgery, told his surgeons, well, I hope you're all Republicans. This guy was like the country's grandpa, man.
And what Brandon didn't say is the response by the surgeon was, Mr. President, today we're all Republicans. It was the surgeon's response that really kind of brings that home.
All right, attempting to jump the gun on a President Bush in 3, 2, 1. All right, so let's go ahead and look in here. We hit right below the...
Wait.
All right, so let's...
Where did it even hit? Where the... Oh, there it is. God. You could barely see it. Did you see it? It's right here. Right there. You can see the contact flash right there. Yeah, that is fucking tiny. Wow.
All right, so let's go ahead and look in here. We hit right below the rib. As you can see, the blood starting to pour out a little bit here. And we see some blood pooling there at the bottom of his left lung, which pretty much, I mean, that's about what it would have been. Just out of curiosity, having to look for an exit. There is, in fact, no exit wound. You can see the bullet actually stuck behind his left lung, though, if you want to come over here to the backside. That right there, about, I can actually feel it, is about an inch behind, or an inch away from the surface flesh there, is the 22 round. Just stopped directly in his torso. Now, another detail of this assassination attempt I didn't actually know until I started doing research for this video is that the 22 caliber round that went into Ronald Reagan's body wasn't a direct hit. It actually had skipped off of the hood of the presidential limousine. So it skipped off the metal hood and bounced into his rib, which then deflected into his lung. Now, obviously, I don't have the presidential limousine hood laying around, but I figured it would be cool to try to recreate that. So I have a steel plate set up over there next to the dummy, and we're going to attempt to see if we can bounce a 22 up into around the same spot. See if that radically changes anything if the bullet fragments, something that would be a little bit more accurate to what actually happened. See if we can get this on a ricochet here. I'll go pretty low.
Shadows, I imagine a lot of the 4 people that were struck with rounds probably didn't notice either because of that reason. Like a 22? Like a lot, like, surprisingly enough, that you don't realize this, but gunshot wounds are not always immediately noticeable. Particularly with these small and fast rounds like the 9mm, people that get shot may often, they might feel a little sting, but may not actually realize they've been shot. There have been recorded cases of people that get shot by a smaller caliber round, maybe a 38 or a 9mm, that they think like maybe they got a bug bite or something. They go on about their day. Sometimes they might not actually bleed very heavily, and they don't realize until maybe like an hour or several hours later that they realize, oh, I'd actually been shot. So it's my guess is probably all 4 people that were shot that day probably didn't realize immediately that they had been shot until they started feeling the effects of the internal damage that they received, with the exception of Brady, who was shot in the head. The Brady, Brady probably knew immediately because it's a headshot, so that probably actually dropped him. But the other 3, including President Reagan, like especially at 22, it might have felt like a bee sting. And not even, and at the moment when your adrenaline is like you're hearing gunshots and your adrenaline spikes, you might not even know what the hell, you might not even realize it. You might not even feel it when you get hit if your adrenaline's coursing at that point. And all that time, the internal damage is working. The entire time, if you get shot by like a 22, that 22 is bounced around inside your body. It's like torn apart your internal organs to a degree you may not even know, and you're bleeding out internally. And you may not notice until you basically collapse from internal bleeding.
See if I can get it to bounce up. Firing, 3, 2, 1.
Couldn't tell. I could not tell if it hit. I'm not seeing, it'd be so difficult to see if there was a strike. I can't tell.
Oh, damn, that was actually probably the perfect shot. Check this out.
What?
So I think that's, according to the diagram, I think that's actually closer. The shot actually deflected, it smacked. I just saw that that's a cracked rib there.
Oh, fuck, hold up. Hold up. Oh, shit, there it is. All right, chat, look right here. Look right there. Oh, there it is. There it is. You can see the rib flex. Wow. The smoke from the shot kind of obscured it, made it hard to see, but there it is. You can actually see the rib splinter. Right, you can see the splintering right there. Wow. Oh, wow. That's impressive. And like people are saying like, wow, it's so quiet. It's a 22. 22 caliber rounds. Chat, they used to shoot those at summer camps, like back in the 80s and maybe like up into the like late 80s, early 90s. Summer camps used to do like rifle shooting with 22s, and these kids were not given ear pro. Like 22 is a very small caliber round. You do not need ear pro when you're shooting a 22 because it's not a loud report.
Oh, damn, that was actually probably the perfect shot. Check this out. So I think that's, according to the diagram, I think that's actually closer. The shot actually deflected, it smacked. I just saw that that's a cracked rib there. That smacked right there and then deflected down into the lung from the rib. Could not have aimed that better. I wish I could take credit for that being purposeful. I just wanted to get close. So right there, you can see where the ballistic gel actually got disrupted, where it smacked the bottom side of that rib and went straight into the bottom of his lung. On the back side, there is no exit that I can see, which means it is actually lodged directly in the lung. Honestly, I thought there was a maybe 30% chance we could even replicate that shot. Never would have thought we would have nailed that on the first try. I'm glad the cameras are rolling because we couldn't do that again. Honestly, this is an assassination, or I guess assassination attempt is a better way to put it, that I find extremely interesting because it's an inherently political assassination. You're shooting a US president, but the motivations behind it were basically non-political entirely. But it still had lasting repercussions in American politics, and Ronald Reagan ended up surviving, doing 8 full years as President of the United States and dying a much older man in 2005.
Oh yeah, okay, I was just about to talk about this. Yeah, just watch this. I was just about to mention this. Brandon beat me to the punch.
Full years as President of the United States and dying a much older man in 2005.
We're reminded of the many traditions of openness and democracy that have marked the history of this city. America missed me.
Fuck, I mean, I guess technically John Hinckley served his time and went on to pursue his dream as a country music artist. The Catcher in the Rye still has a better KD than you do on Battlefield 6. What a world. Point being is, if you're looking for interesting shit that you thought would never happen in real life and would have to be fiction, look no further than a history book. But anyhow, I hope you learned something from this video. This is one of our series that we do on historic assassinations because I find a lot of them very intriguing. Mostly that a lot of people know that they happened, or in instances like this, a lot of people probably don't. But even on the ones you do know about, you don't really know all the details. It's very interesting history, at least to me, and I hope it's interesting to you. I love learning about this stuff, and I love being able to pass that information to you guys. So I just want to say, I hope you enjoyed this video. I appreciate you staying all the way to the end. And as always, I will see you sexy YouTube mother lovers next time. And you better subscribe because we have a really fucking cool video coming out next, and I'm very excited for it, and I don't want to spoil it. That's it. I'm out. Thank you.
Very nice. That was fascinating, and damn, that was a good shot. That was a good shot by Brandon. Very impressive.